Hello and welcome to Byju's IAS. Let's get started and look into the first article. The first article says the debate around gain of function research. The article here is speaking about one of the scientific concepts called as gain of function research. What is this gain of function research? What are the advantages of this particular research? What are the challenges that the scientific community may face and the global community may face because of such an research? What is the way forward is this article all about? First up, let's understand what is this concept of gain of function research. There are three words in this particular concept. One is gain, second is function, third is research. First, let us understand what is this function. Let's say we have a particular virus. This particular virus is currently being studied in one of the laboratory settings. So what do? They try and understand what is this virus, what is this particular structure, what is the RNA or the DNA structure of this particular virus. They ponder deep and deep into this particular virus structure. So what are they doing here? They're trying to study this particular virus and indirectly they engage in the research. As and when the virus is being studied in this particular laboratory, they ensure that they modify the structure of this particular virus by ensuring that genetic engineering techniques are employed on this organism. So what do? They bring about change in this particular virus in the laboratory settings, alter the gene structure of this particular virus, and basically they bring about mutation of the structure of the virus. Added to this, they also ensure that this particular virus passes through serial passaging. What is this serial passaging? Let's say in the laboratory settings, we have to ensure that this particular virus is studied under different types of environments. Added to this, this has to be studied under different circumstances. What are the different types of environment? The temperature will be increased. The temperature will be decreased. They are made to freeze as well. There are different challenges. They are made to go through different pressure conditions as well. So when it passes through serial passaging, what are the changes that will be introduced to the virus structure? These changes will be studied, the data will be collected, and ultimately in the near future, if this spills over as a result of natural process, what will they do? They would already have the vaccine in advance. That happens to be the gain because of this particular research. So what are we doing here? We are having a particular function, that is to study the virus, and we ponder deep into it. So we are conducting a research according to this particular process, and ultimately we try and understand in advance what could be the changes that may be introduced to the mutation of the virus, so we well know in advance what vaccine we can develop because of this particular research. So what is the purpose of this particular research? Basically, we conduct such an activity or the study so that we can plan in advance the potential vaccines and therapies which can be explored for any types of viruses. This particular concept leads to another concept called as dual use research of concern. What do we mean by this particular concept? Let me explain in terms of normal concept and then enter into the concept of microorganisms and virology. Whenever we develop one of the techniques or the tools, or it can be any other equipments, it can have good effects, it can show some merit, and at the same time it can also have bad impact or negative impact of such a tool. One such example is with respect to the nuclear energy. The nuclear energy can be exploited for the good purposes of electricity, but at the same time it can also be used for the disastrous consequences as well if it is employed as a nuclear missile. Now if we have to use the same concept in virology, dual use research of concern basically means that you are exploiting or exploring the virus whose basic intention is to produce a vaccine in advance, but then if this particular virus accidentally spills over into the environment, into the society, it can have a disastrous consequence. So ideally the intention is to create something good so that we bring about the change in advance when it comes to the vaccine, but unfortunately if there is some spillover or accidental leak from the laboratory, it can have devastating consequences is what is this dual use research of concern. So our intention might be good in nature, but it can have disastrous consequences, or the negative consequence is what is this dual use research of concern. Why are we discussing all this? That is because of the lab leak origin theory of the COVID-19. Recently, we have United States of America and many other countries like Australia as well, who wanted to understand if the COVID-19 virus spilled over, or was there an accidental leak from Wuhan virology experiment that was being conducted in China. Because of that, we are entering this particular concept of gain of function research. Now, when we look into what is the situation in India, how do we control the so-called research and its parameters in India? We have one of the rules called as manufacture, use, import, export and storage of hazardous microorganisms, genetically engineered organisms, or what is called as cell rules of 1989, which basically provides all the guidelines and instructions for the scientific community which is engaged in the activities of research when it comes to the viruses and other microorganisms. We have the Department of Biotechnology, which had issued guidelines for the establishment of containment facilities. Basically, how are we supposed to set up the biosafety labs? What should be the biosafety lab structure? Who should be the personnel who are conducting this particular research? How should we handle a particular virus? How should we comply by the rules are present and given by this Department of Biotechnology notification which was issued recently. Now the whole crux of this article is, should such experimentation be conducted? Yes, and there are few arguments which say that such experiments should not be conducted. First, let us look at arguments which says that experiments like this will have to be conducted. What are the advantages of such a research? In this particular case, what are we doing? We are taking a virus. The virus, its structure is being changed. We alter the gene structure and we make sure that there is mutation of this particular virus. So when this particular virus changes its structure in different environmental conditions, we know how this particular virus will replicate. So we also know what is the structure of this particular virus. So we know in advance how the virus would react in this particular situation, and we would be able to come up with a vaccine in advance. So in case on a natural process, if such a thing does occur, what we already have in place is a vaccine structure where we would be able to minimize the number of losses when it comes to the human lives. Let's take the example of COVID-19. Let's hypothetically assume that this is not a lab virus, or let's assume that this is a natural virus. So let's also assume that this natural virus was already taken by the scientific community. They were investigating it. Had they investigated earlier, we could have already had a vaccine before. We could have stopped the menace of the COVID-19, and ultimately we could have had a solution in the form of vaccine, or what therapies the people have to go through, what precautionary measures the people have to take well in advance had we studied the COVID-19 related virus. Since we were not able to study, this process was ultimately delayed. This led to huge number of people passing away. So what is the advantage? Had we studied the virus, if we do more research into the virus structure, we can well in advance have a vaccine which can minimize the human losses. This is the advantage, but there are many problems when it comes to this particular research. What are those? One, when it comes to this particular virus, yes, there might be a virus, but the virus has a natural mutation. But what are we doing? It is not a virus which is naturally mutating, but instead we are introducing changes into this particular structure. What if this particular virus, which is currently in the laboratory settings, we are introducing mutation which is not happening on a natural process, and if it leaks from the laboratory settings, even if it is unintentional in nature? It might not be intentional, but there has been a laboratory accident that has taken place, and in such a situation, this particular virus, which was originally may not be causing much of impact to the human lives, but because it is mutated, ultimately it may cause a greater catastrophe, or it can result in what is called as the biohazard to number of people world over. So what was originally present is the virus. This particular virus whose structure has been changed by the scientific community. The original structure was not a problem at all, but because it is changed, the structure is changed, and if it is leaked, it could be a problem to the human community. The mutations that is being conducted in the laboratory settings, yes, they may change the structure. Yes, they may also change the pressure conditions. They may also bring about changes in the temperature as well. But what would happen in the real life scenario is totally different. Laboratory is altogether an experimental game, but when it comes to nature, the nature has its own play of chess as well. This is where the nature can checkmate the human beings, and ultimately what might be seen in laboratory settings may not work in the real time scenario. So what is the use of conducting such a research when, if it is spilled over, will have a greater catastrophe to the human beings? Now let's say they have conducted this experiment, they have invested a huge amount of money, the scientific community is employed into it. What they do is to invest on this particular project, they're giving their time as well, and when this particular cost and time is given, they'll be experimenting on number of other species as well. How sure are we that when such an experiment is conducted on a different kind of species, the same could have a positive result on the human beings? So what is happening here? There is a problem with respect to the cost. We have invested a huge amount of time. The experimentations conducted on a different species may not work onto the human beings in reality. So it ultimately means, if this particular virus whose structure is changed, which has a lot of mutations introduced by the scientific community, which was not originally present in that virus, if it gets spilled over, what we will have is grave consequences for the human and the global community. So this article currently goes on to say that there are set of examples where it could be in an advantageous position, but there are also situations where if it leads to accidental leakage, it may also have disastrous consequences. What is the conclusion that we can draw? Yes, the gain of functional research can be advantageous. It can help in planning in advance as well. But when we weigh it together, the negatives far outweigh the positives, and as a result, we have to rethink about this whole process of gain of function research. Is what is this article all about? Now let's look into the next article. This article says a Cold War relic that's seeking a new purpose. The article here is speaking about North Atlantic Treaty Organization, which in simple is called as NATO. So we are going to discuss about the NATO, the historical background with respect to this particular organization, and what is its position in the present situation. When we speak about NATO, what is it? It is an intergovernmental alliance whose basic objective is twofold. One is political, the other is military. So it is an intergovernmental organization which has the political and the military alliance. What is it about the political alliance? Basically, you have all the Western countries, the Western European countries, North American countries like United States of America and Canada. These are all countries which support democratic values. So the basic agenda of this particular organization is to support the very fundamentals of democratic values, stand for each other, and ultimately respect the freedom of that particular country. What do they support? They espouse democratic values for all the countries who are part of this particular organization. The second objective is in reference to the military affiliation. What exactly happens? Back in those periods where after the World War II, we had two important powers. One represented by United States of America, which believed in the so-called capitalistic model, which was a superpower. Then we also have the Soviet Union. It was also another superpower. It also believed in the state-led development as well. So what was happening was, one side there were countries which were supporting United States of America, and United States of America was the vanguard of the capitalism model. On the other side, we have the Soviet Union, which was another superpower, which was also wanting to pull countries towards the state-led model. So what we have is the clash of two major superpowers. So the Western European countries were mostly affiliated to United States of America, while the Eastern European countries were mostly turning towards the Soviet Union. As and when this was happening, the Soviet Union was also moving closer towards the Western European countries. It had an expansion policy as well to prevent the Soviet Union from entering into the Western European countries, trigger a warlike scenario. These countries, that is the Western European countries, United States of America and Canada, came up together. This was led by United States of America. So what we have is a military alliance where they wanted to prevent the expansion of Soviet Union into the fold of Western European countries. So what is the military alliance basically? So it is where all these countries come together, prevent the expansion of the Soviet Union, and in case there are clashes with any other country which is not part of this military alliance, they would want to sort out all these issues on a peaceful manner. If they are not able to sort out these issues on a peaceful manner, that is when an attack by another country which is not part of the NATO, if that is done, an attack on one single country means that the entire alliance comes together, will treat it as an attack on its country, and they come together and fight the external threat. This is where we have one of the articles called as Article 5 of the NATO organization. What is this Article 5? It says the parties agree that an armed attack against one or more of them in Europe or North America shall be considered an attack against them all. They will try to conclude this particular issue or conflict peacefully. They would also want to engage the diplomatic missions as well. If all of this does not work, what they'll take up is the hard approach where military attack will be initiated against a country which has ensured this attack on the NATO organization countries. So that is what is the military alliance. So basically it has the political alliance, that is it espouses the democratic values, and it also has the military alliance, which basically means any other country threatening these countries, all these countries come together to take on that external threat. So what is the purpose of this particular organization? This can be broken down into two parts. One is during the Cold War, which we did discuss right now, that is to basically prevent the Soviet expansion. The other is after the post-Cold War era. What is that happened after the post-Cold War era? After the post-Cold War, many of the people said that NATO would have a demise very soon. Why? Because this particular organization was created because they sensed threat from the Soviet Union. Now the threat is no more there. Why? Because after the Cold War, that is after 1991, what we had is the balkanization of the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union was no more present. The original threat, which was the Soviet Union's expansion, is no more present. So what many people thought was that there would be a demise of this organization called as NATO. But what did NATO do? NATO started reinventing itself. In fact, it is still persisting its democratic values as well. Originally, its idea was to prevent the Soviet expansion, but after the Cold War, they have a collective defense to a collective security, which means in case there is threats that are emanating in the form of terrorism, or it is in the form of cyber attack, or any of the non-state actors, which means terrorist organizations like ISIS, in such a situation, these NATO alliances, that is the countries, come together to take on the common threat. The original intent was to prevent the expansion of the Soviet Union, but after the Cold War, where there was balkanization of the Soviet Union, these countries are working on the common threats that may emanate from multiple other non-state actors, and they stand together as a security alliance. This was what happened after the Cold War era. What was the advantage of all these organizations staying together after the Cold War era? Basically, after the Cold War era, the basic threat of Soviet Union was done away with. But these countries continued to stay with each other basically for two reasons. One is the advantage for the Europe. The other is in terms of United States of America. What is the advantage for Europe? When it comes to Europe, what we have is all these countries come together, they formed an alliance. When it comes to Europe, they need not have to spend too much on the security. Why? Because most of the funding was taken care by United States of America. Up to 75% of the funding was taken care by United States of America. Since the funding was comparatively less, they are being protected by the larger number of countries. So what Europe meant that they were safe, as the vanguard was United States of America. All that they had to do was compromise on few things. They had to lose out on some of the autonomy factors, but rest of the things fell in place when it comes to the security. So they need not had to spend too much on the security, and they had to invest very less when it comes to the people as well. When it comes to the war or an external threat, you also have to send your soldiers to this particular alliance and its party and its war operations. But when it comes to Europe, since most of it was taken care by United States of America and other European powers like UK, France, the other small countries need not had to spend too much on the money, which is the funding front, and also they were protected on the security front, which is why they continue to be present under this alliance. What is in for the United States of America? When you look into the United States of America, what we have is one of the superpowers before the Cold War. After the Cold War ended, it became the sole superpower. It was still able to glorify about the past, and it was able to retain the leadership of the world. Since it had all these countries under its control, the Western European countries, it also started bringing some of the Eastern European countries into its fold. So what happens? Its economic presence start increasing as well. Its clout in that particular region start increasing as well. So what do they have is the power projection of the United States of America increased as a part of the head of the NATO. Since it was the vanguard, since it was the anchor of this particular organization, it started projecting its power where most of the countries started supporting United States of America. Now when we look into the membership of who the NATO members are, initially there were about 12 members. So this was a particular grouping which started off with 12 members. Currently there are about 30 members. So kindly look into this particular countries. There are about 30 countries. Kindly look into them because it can be prospectively asked in your preliminary examination. So this was initially founded by 12 member countries, basically to prevent the massive Soviet armies stationed in Eastern and Central Europe after the Second World War. So now it is an alliance of 30 countries where United States, most European Union members, United Kingdom, Canada and Turkey have come together, who are part of this organization. So the NATO as an organization was based on the North Atlantic Treaty in the year 1949 after the Second World War. So kindly remember, it has its headquarters in Belgium, where in Brussels. Now, what is this article speaking about? The article here is speaking about the recent summit that took place with respect to NATO. According to the communique, what is a communique? It is an official document released by one of the organizations. According to this particular communique, what are they focusing right now? They are focusing on the rise of China in this particular communique, which was released after the summit. Earlier, the focus was on Soviet Union, the focus was on Russia, and now the focus is on China as a security threat. What has NATO's communique said? It has said that China's stated ambitions and assertive behavior present systematic challenges to the rules-based international order. This is because they have violated the minority rights when it comes to the Xinjiang province. They are not respecting the democratic rights when it comes to the Hong Kong. They have not been respecting the international order when it comes to sea in South China Sea, and they have what is called as continental issues with multiple countries in and around China. This is why this particular organization NATO has said that China is a potential threat for the international global order. In the 2021 summit, they have gone on to criticize China's alleged expansion policy, expanding the nuclear arsenal, lack of transparency, military cooperation with Russia, and use of disinformation to malign other countries. So this is what led to all the NATO countries coming up together and voicing their concerns with China as a security threat. The other two identified threats that has been identified in this NATO summit is one is in reference to Russia. Why Russia? Because previously it had captured Crimea. Crimea was under the control of Ukraine. The other threat that they have spoken about is in reference to terrorism, which is a global threat to the entire humanity. But what are the concerns with respect to NATO? When you look into NATO, we did discuss about the advantages, why countries were able to retain and persist their policies when it comes to NATO. But there are concerns for countries as well. What are these concerns? Let's look at it from the viewpoint of United States of America. What was an advantage for European countries is now a threat to United States of America or a problem to United States of America. How? Most of the funding is done by United States of America. We did say that it is about 75% and more than that. Since other countries are not cooperating, since other countries are not actively engaging when it comes to funding, United States of America under the previous regime of Donald Trump in fact requested and asked and ordered majority of the countries to contribute, or this could also lead to instability in NATO. So what is the major problem here? The concern is from the framework of United States of America, where it said that other countries will also have to contribute on the funding front, which meant that there was a friction between United States of America and other countries. The second problem is for the other countries as well. Why? This is an advantage for United States of America, but this is a problem to other countries. How? Let's say in this particular NATO, we did say that this was a vanguard, this was an anchor where all the power projection was done by United States of America. This is where all the decisions were taken by United States of America, but consent was not taken by these countries, which meant that they had to push in their soldiers to fight United States of America's war in Iraq or even in Afghanistan as well. So the war might be taken up by United States of America for achieving its own goals, but who are the soldiers who are fighting? It is the personnel or the soldiers from the European countries. So it is the agenda of United States of America where it wanted to achieve its own goals, but the sacrifices are made by these countries. These are some of the challenges when it comes to NATO. Even in the present situation, when this particular goal in the recent NATO summit, where they said that China was a security threat, majority of the countries did accept, but there were few countries which also have given negative opinion as well. So there were disputes between Germany and France where it has opposed United States of America, and they have now said that they do not have any problems with China as well. So the overall communique is voicing concerns with respect to China, but then there are countries like France, there are countries like Germany which have not completely said that this is an original idea of the country, but this is an idea of the alliance partner. Added to this, when you look into Russia, its original agenda, it wanted to create a model when it comes to the original idea. We did discuss about it, that there was an economic model where Russia or the Soviet Union wanted to establish, but when it comes to China, it is not asking other countries to adapt what is called as the China model. Russia was asking countries to adopt Russia model or the Soviet model, but China is not asking countries to follow the China model, which is where these countries sense that China may not be a threat to United States of America or to these countries, as China is not enforcing these ideas of economic development. Apart from this, most of the other countries also feel that China may engage in economic competition, but it may not be a threat on the border issues. When it comes to Soviet Union, it was expanding because it wanted to capture the border as well. But China does not have any such intentions, so it may not be a security issue, says some of the European countries. What is the way forward? When we look into the alliance, it is a political and military alliance. So this particular organization going forward should identify what could be a threat to the freedom and security of all these countries. So the idea should be on focusing on bringing an end to terrorism, bringing an end to radicalization, influences that can threaten the sovereignty and integrity of these countries, and ultimately bringing an end to the radical forces world over should be the major objective of this organization. Since there is a solid collaboration between some of the European countries and China as well, going forward, any communique that is being released should be ideal in its words, says this article. It is this that we have to understand in reference to this article. Now let's look into the next article. This article says row over study on bat viruses in Nagaland. There was a study that was conducted by the National Center for Biological Sciences in the remote jungles of Nagaland. This National Center for Biological Sciences is one of the institute which is part of Tata Institute of Fundamental Research, which indeed is part of the Department of Atomic Energy. This particular study conducted by the National Center for Biological Sciences studied the bat to human transmission of deadly viruses. So this particular study had number of institutes that were engaged as well. This included Duke NUS Medical School in Singapore. It also included the Uniformed Services University of the Health Sciences, an institution funded by the US Department of Science, and this particular study was itself funded by the US Defense Threat Reduction Agency. So what do we have is one institute from India, multiple other institutes from multiple parts of the world come together, funded by a US agency so that they could understand how the viruses get transmitted from the bats to the humans. So this study was to understand how these viruses moved from the animals or the mammals to the human beings, which is the fundamental of zoonosis. So what is zoonosis basically? Zoonosis is nothing but it is one of the disease which refers to that which get transmitted from the animals to the human beings. So this particular study was all about zoonosis. Now the question is, why was this particular study conducted in the state of Nagaland? There is one of the tribe called as the Longfuri Imuchi, which is living in the Mimi village of Nagaland. This particular subtribe includes three clans as well. What are these three clans? Boma, Wohor as well as Mer. What is happening in this particular state? So this particular tribe have a festival called as the Bat Harvesting Festival, which happens every year in the month of October. So what is this Bat Harvesting Festival? Basically, the bat harvesting involves hunting bats for the meat. Why do they hunt these bats? That is because according to their traditions, they basically believe if this particular bat is consumed, this will prevent diarrhea, this will cure the body pain, and ultimately it will also increase the virility as well. Since they have this false assumption, which is why they engage in the activity of bat harvesting, which ultimately means it becomes the very foundation for the study. Now the question is, what did this particular study say? According to this particular study, generally bats are the reservoir of the viruses. So what do? As and when they are consumed by the human beings, they help in disease transmission. One of the viruses that the bats are capable of transferring or transmitting is called as the filoviruses. So the bats which are present in India, when consumed or when they are bitten by this particular bat, they transfer these filoviruses from the bats to the human beings. It is these filoviruses which also cause Ebola. It is these filoviruses which also cause hemorrhagic fever. That is why this particular study was undertaken in the state of Nagaland. So this particular study, which was being undertaken from the year 2017, which was ultimately published in the year 2019 in one of the scientific journals called as PLOS, Neglected Tropical Disease. There were no issues with respect to this particular study until 2020. But in the year 2020, what we had is the COVID-19 virus. This is where the government started investigating if this was related to this particular study and this particular examination. And finally, what we have is this particular information as of now, that there is no incident of spillover of this particular virus, or the study has nothing to do with the COVID-19. Added to this, there are other issues that are voiced by the government of India. What are these? One, when this particular study was being undertaken, it was being funded by one of the organizations from United States of America. When such foreign funding is happening, when collaborations actions were being undertaken, did they take the permission from the government of India? That is the first major concern. Whenever such study is being conducted, what we have to follow is set of guidelines and principles as espoused by the government of India. But in this particular case, when studies were being investigated, certain principles were flouted and rules and regulations were not followed is the second argument. This is where the scientific community also say that because of the actions of the government of India, we may have chilling effect in the name of biosecurity. Because there were lapses, the government of India has voiced its concern, but this indirectly means that it may have chilling effect to the future research program, says the scientific community. So what is the way forward? As of now, we have come to a conclusion that there is no link between this particular study and the COVID-19 issue. But then we also have to understand that Northeast India is part of the Eastern Himalaya and the Indo-Myanmar hotspot. There are a number of tribes which make their living from hunting, and because of the developmental projects, what we also have increasing cases of deforestation, which all means that we will have more interaction with the wild animals, where we can have some of the viruses from the animals to the human beings. So it is important for the government of India going forward, the NGOs who are working in this particular domain and other organizations, to see the novel infectious diseases and ensure that these tribes are given enough awareness programs. So the government of India will have to employ its agencies, the NGOs will have to speak up to such people who are tribals, who do not have any idea about the normal scientific approach. So an awareness should be given to it, and at the same time the government of India will also have to provide protein food so that these people do not binge on these type of mammals. As of now, they go and eat such mammals or such animals meat because it is a kind of protein for such people. But the government of India, if it is capable, or the respective state governments, if they are capable of creating an awareness and also provide proteinous food to such people, then such incidents can be avoided. So as long as the issue of origin of the virus with respect to COVID-19 is present, what we will have is such doubts which will be created, is what is this article all about. Now let's look into the next article. This article here is speaking about Zacardus. This is nothing but an insect which belongs to Zaccardae family in the order of Hemiptera. So kindly remember, Zacardus is nothing but an insect of the family Zaccarda and in the order of Hemiptera. Where are they found? They usually found in eastern and the Midwestern United States of America. When it comes to India, there are three species of Zaccarda which are found in the Indian subcontinent. One is Cremistica mista, which is found in Sri Lanka. Second is C. zeminja, which is found in Nilgiri Hills. And third is C. riboi, which was discovered in Riboi district of Meghalaya. What is the uniqueness of this Zaccarda? Basically, they are called as periodical Zaccardas. Why are they called so? That is because this particular insect will live in the underground for nearly 13 to 17 years, and they come out after 17 to 13 years into the open world. So for the first 13 to 17 years, they are in the larval form, they are burrowed beneath the soil, and they feed on the fluids from the plant roots. So because they live in that particular soil for nearly 13 to 17 years and only come after this, that is why they are called as periodical Zaccardas. So there are basically 5 developmental stages. These developmental stages are what is called as instars. So the 4 developmental stages happens beneath the soil, but the final one happens above the soil, above the ground, where this particular larvae will ultimately be transformed into an adult, only to perish after 4 weeks. So their lifetime is usually about 1 month. For the entire lifetime they are underground, but the minute they come out in open, they live for almost 1 month. They lay the eggs, and this particular egg will eventually settle down underground. This insect is what is called as Zaccarda. What is the significance of this particular insect? They prune the mature trees, they aerate the soil, and once they die, their bodies serve as an important source of nitrogen for the growing trees. So kindly remember, They are one of the important sources of nitrogen when they die for the growing trees. This is important from the preliminary examination point of view. Now let's look into the next article. This article says Delta Plus and an emerging public health threat. What is this article all about? This article is speaking about the variant of the COVID-19 virus. We have discussed couple of times in the past as well. To discuss in brief, this Delta virus or the variant of the COVID-19 could become a problem for India and for the global community. Why? One, because the vaccines that are currently present may not serve the purpose, as these antibodies created by the vaccines may not help in preventing this particular virus mutation, and at the same time, if this particular vaccine does not work for the variant, it means that managing this particular crisis will increase and ultimately more people may lose out on the life, is what is this article all about. So what we have to understand is that Delta Plus is nothing but one of the variations or the mutations of this particular virus, which was first identified in India. It is formally called as AY.1, B.1.617.2.1, and it has an additional mutation called as KF17N. Previously, such variations were also seen in South Africa. It was also seen in Brazil as well. And now what we have is the Delta variant, where it is increasing, multiplying when it comes to India. Since it is increasing, the vaccines may not work, the antibodies may not work, and ultimately managing the crisis will become a problem, says this article. It is this that we have to understand in reference to this article. Now let's look into the mains practice questions. What do you understand by gain of function research? Discuss the potential benefits and risks associated with such research. Next question, throwing light on the origins of North Atlantic Treaty Organization, examine if NATO should reinvent itself in the 21st century to meet new age challenges. So please write all your answers on the comment section. Peer review. Do give positive feedback to your friends' answers. So this is it for today. Thank you for watching. All the best.